Welcome to Voiceover Work, an audiobook sampler. Where do you listen? Today is Monday, the 29th of April, 2024. Return listeners are familiar with the name Peter Hollins, and most of you are probably familiar with the 80-20 rule or the Pareto principle. Today we combine those because Peter Hollins written a book entitled The 80-20 Learner. It helps you figure out what you need, focus on that, and ignore the rest, which, according to the author, is the actual key to success in life. Today's podcast is the audiobook preview of Peter Hollins' 80-20 Learner. You can learn more about Peter Hollins at bit.ly/Peter Hollins. In 1941, engineer and management consultant Joseph M. Giron became interested in the work of Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist and sociologist. Pareto had observed that around 80% of all land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the Italian population. It was Giron who took this observation and really ran with it, though, claiming that most things in life, not just property ownership, have this kind of unequal distribution. He claimed that 80% of any outcome or phenomenon is actually the result of just 20% of the causes. Giron applied this so-called Pareto principle to many different areas, including economics, mathematics, and industry. The principle has since been expanded even further to help describe and prescribe a certain mode of distribution in all matters of business, learning, and personal development. Later in his career, Giron himself would use this principle in many loose and ad hoc ways, describing his principle not so much as a law, but rather a description of a certain distribution, where the vital few and the useful many share unequally in a certain phenomenon. He eventually concluded that we could use this principle to our benefit. For example, we naturally become more efficient if we purposefully focus on the vital 20% instead of the much less vital 80%. Today, the Pareto principle, as it is applied in popular culture, is only distantly related to Pareto's original work, but has come nevertheless to represent an important truth about how we can strategically focus our attention for maximum results, no matter which area we're working in. Thus, it follows that, given unlimited resources, we should prioritize focusing on that 20% of our situation that will give us the most bang for our buck. Of course, the challenge then becomes identifying that 20%. The principle can be applied very concretely to specific issues or to more abstract, overarching concepts. However it's applied, the idea is that by making consistent small efforts in the vital 20%, one can achieve substantial success, whether your goal is mastery of an instrument or a language, personal development, or growing a business. The 80-20 principle is everywhere. Customer service may spend 80% of all their time managing just 20% of customer complaints. 80% of healthcare funds are spent on 20% of people in a population. 80% of a business sales come from 20% of its clients. 80% of people tend to use only 20% of a phone app's features. 20% of software bugs cause 80% of all errors. People wear 20% of their clothes 80% of the time. 20% of the exercises we do have 80% of the impact on our health. Analyzing and solving just 20% of emerging issues will remove 80% of your problems. 20% of our relationships satisfy 80% of our social needs. To be healthy, we need only eat well 80% of the time. We can cheat 20% of the time. The focus of this book is to find out exactly how we can use this principle when it comes to learning, improving skills, absorbing new information, and boosting memory. Can this principle help us make the best of our skills and strengths? Can it improve our focus and help us stay lean, minimal, and on track? Basically, can it help us learn better? The answer is absolutely yes. However, there is a caveat. This 80-20 principle has been much misunderstood since the 1940s, and today, the concept is often carelessly applied to situations that don't really warrant it. Many things in life follow this distribution pattern, but not all things. That's why one skill we'll return to again and again in this book is thinking carefully and strategically about how to apply the principle, and indeed. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Voice Over Work and Audiobook Sampler. Where do you listen? Remember, you can join our author's email list and learn more about Peter Hollins at bit.ly/Peter Hollins. If you enjoyed today's episode, tune in again next Monday. We'll have the chapter-by-chapter preview of Peter Hollins' book, The 80-20 Learner.